to finish up our game, what we're going to be doing this time is adding some obstacles. Make those enemies avoid the obstacles so they don't just move through them or get stuck on them. Give the spawners some health and display the damage. And then win when all the spawners and the enemies are dead. So with this in mind, we're going to add a little bit of code, add a few more objects. First thing we're going to need to do is we're going to do these first two here. We may as well do them together. So I'm going to create a new sprite obstacle. I just made it 32 by 32 and filled that with black. You can fill it with any color. Don't worry about drawing pictures. Just fill it with a black color. It's fine. Don't worry about changing the center. You do want to make sure you tick precise collision checking though, and then click OK. Go down and create an object called object obstacle using the sprite obstacle and make sure it's solid. That's all we really need for that part. If we go into our room, our test room, we can add some of these objects in. So we click object, we select our object obstacle, put it in the room, and then you can resize it. If you hold Control down, you can rotate it. And if you hold down Alt, you can resize it without worrying about it snapping to the grid. So you could set up a little maze. If you hold Alt when you're moving it, it won't snap to the grid. So I'll pop that there. And oops. And resize that a little bit. Okay, so there's my obstacles in my room. Now, these obstacles are set to solid, but the enemy AI, ignore that second line for now, the enemy AI is set to move towards a point. It doesn't ignore solid objects, it will just continually move that object towards the player, which means it's going to go straight through those walls. And I can show you that by running the game. So if I run the game, they just fly straight through the walls. They completely ignore them. The player can't go through the walls, so I can't go through them. But the enemies can. So we need to make a change to this enemy script. And there are a lot of things in here about pathfinding. And I probably won't find it there. If I quickly click on search, pathfinding. Nope. What it is in GameMaker, it's called motion path, and they all start with MP. So there's a lot of things in here, but one of them, the one that we want to use, and the one that's most useful for you, is going to be this MP potential step. If you want something to move towards the player, this is the one to use. Okay, the other ones are quite complex. They allow you to do different things. You could take a look at them, but MP potential step is the one that we want. So it says this function moves an instance towards a point, avoiding obstacles. And so the way we use it is we say MP underscore potential underscore step, and then the X goal, the Y goal, how fast it's moving, and whether to check all instances and avoid them or just solid ones. So down here, check all. If you want to check all instances, true, or solid ones, we type false in there. So that's what I've done up here. So I go into enemy AI. I'll just comment out this line, 2 forward slashes. We'll ignore that line and remove that there. So MP potential step. The X position is going to be object underscore player underscore character dot X. So the X position of the player. And then the Y position of the player. And then enemy speed, which if you remember is argument 0. And then false. I only want to avoid the solid objects. I don't want to try to avoid bullets. I don't want to avoid the player, because then they would never touch the player and the player would never die. So we just want it to avoid solid objects. So now when I go in and play my game, they are avoiding those objects. So they're going around the outside of it rather than straight through it. So I can go down here and they'll chase me through that gap. That part's done. Okay, so we've done those two things there. Now we're going to give the spawners some health and display the damage on them. There's a few ways. I've tried doing this several times, and the easiest way to explain it is not the best way to explain it, but it will work. It's not the best way to do it. It's the easiest way to do it. So let's just do it the easy way, because most of you won't have done much coding before. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our object enemy spawner, and in the create variable, we're going to set variable AI spawner health to 10. So AI spawner health, set it to 10. Then before we do anything more, we're going to create another object and call it AI spawner dead. We're going to give it a sprite enemy spawner, and on add event create, we are going to change the sprite to sprite enemy spawner. Subimage is going to be 5, and the speed is going to be 0. Okay, now if you look up here, you might need to add some of this. So I've actually added, I don't need all those, so I might need to change that to subimage 4. But I've added some extra little animation. So I just went animation, set length, set it to 5. So we've got 5 frames, and added. So there's a bit of damage, more damage, lots of damage, and then destroyed, or heaps of damage. Okay, so what I'm going to do is change this to subimage 5. So it's just going to have the destroyed sprite on it. It's not going to animate. That's just what it's going to look like. So I click OK. So I've got my AI spawner dead down there. So in spawner AI, if I go back to here, object player bullet, no, not object player bullet, object enemy spawner, collision with the bullet, I'm setting the variable AI spawner health to -1. And I'm going to do a few things in this code here. If AI underscore spawner health is less than or equal to 0, I'm going to do something here. Now, I'm going to do some else ifs. Okay, so these are, what else does is if this is not true, it's then going to check this. But if this is true, then it's not going to do the rest of them. Okay, so it's going to make it a little bit more efficient. I could just write 6 if statements in a row if it's less than 0, if it's less than 2, if it's less than 4, if it's less than 8, if it's less than or equal to 10. The problem with that is if it's on 1 health, well, that's going to be less than or equal to 10. And so it's going to just do all of these things and then do that at the end and change it to the maximum health sprite anyway. So I do the else. And I should probably start from the top. So if, and we'll do it the other way around, AI health, or AI spawner health is greater than or equal to 9. Else if AI spawner health is greater than or equal to 7. Else if AI spawner health is greater than or equal to 5. Else if AI spawner health is greater than or equal to, I might make this 8, 6, 4, 2, and then at the end, for all other situations, I'm just going to use an else. So it doesn't need to check that. So that way, we can do a little bit of a test here. So if it's 10, it's only going to do this. Okay, that will be true. It'll do this, and then it will ignore the rest. Even though 10 is greater than 6, we've already done this first one. That is true, and it means it will ignore all of these. The only way it will ever execute this is if the one before it is false. So if it's 7, well, this is false, and then it checks this. If AI spawner health is greater than 6 or equal to 6, well, 7 is, so that's true. So then it won't do any of the others here. So in here, what we're going to do is, in this case, the first one, I'm going to change it, instance change, and I'm going to change it into object. I don't think I called it the right name, did I? No, I didn't. So I'll have to go back there and change that to obj AI spawner dead. And then in here, obj AI spawner dead. Okay, so we're changing it to that one. Perform events, I'll just say false in there. So it wants to perform events. When I change it, I don't want to. I just want it to be a new instance. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to change sprite, and I think I might, that doesn't look like it's working. Sprite underscore, let's have a look at one of these here. We might have to, I might just have to do a quick Google. Change sprite subimage in GML. Code to change sprite subimage. Image index, that's what I want, image index. Okay, so don't need sprite, it's image underscore index. I've done this around the wrong way. I actually want that one to go all the way down here. Okay, and this one is going to be image index equals 0. Image speed equals 0. Image index equals 1. Image speed equals 0. Image index equals 2. Image speed equals 0. Ignore me, I don't know why I'm putting in those things at the end. Image index equals 3. Image speed equals 0. These end line statements are required in a lot of programming languages. They're not required in here. Now, you may notice that I'm changing the image speed to 0 in all of them. So I can save myself a bit of space just by taking that out and just typing it up here. I'm not repeating myself. The code's more efficient, easier to read, because now it's only changing the image speed once instead of all these times down here. So let's see what happens here. I'll save, tick that. I might just disable the creation of enemies for the time being. So I should be able to go and I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, let's have a look at what just happened. Player character, enemy spawner. Oh, for some reason I've got a thing in here that's changing that. So let's go back and run it. Okay, so it gets a little crack, and then some more, and then some more. And it doesn't seem to... It is dead, because I can move over it. I will just make that second object solid. Subimage 4. Oh, okay, of course. So, my mistake. In here, I want that to be true. So it does run the create event code and changes that to the destroyed graphic. So I should be able to shoot these. There we go. So now it's destroyed. I still can't move through it. Okay, so that one's destroyed. That one's destroyed. That one's destroyed. Now we want to check to make sure that that there's no destroyed things or no AI spawners left. And if there are spawners left, then if there's no spawners left, then we want to go to the next room. We want to finish the game. Okay, so to do that, so we've done this bit here, give spawners health and display the damage on them. Win when all spawners and enemies are dead. So let's go into here. And we're going to our Hud script. We might need to write a small little bit of code for this. So let's create a new script. Create a script. And I'm going to call it game controller. And I'm going to go into object HUD, add event, step event. And in here, we're going to execute that script, game controller. And we'll do this here. And we're going to check to see if an object exists. Object exists. If object exists, and the object is going to be object enemy character. So we need to check if the object enemy character exists and object exists object AI spawner. So when there's none of these left, now that's not what I've called it. Object enemy spawner. I need to get better at naming these. Object enemy spawner. Room underscore go to win screen. And I'll quickly make a win screen after this. So win room. I like to use lowercase as much as possible. Room go to win room. Okay, so what's going to happen is, well, some of you may have figured out there's an error here. And if you haven't, try and pause and read through this code and see where the error is. It's not a syntax error. It's more of a logic error, which means that the code will run fine, but it's not going to do what I intend it to do. So just pause it here and have a think about it. Okay, hopefully you figured it out. And what it is it's saying if the object exists and this object exists, then we win the game. Now the problem is, at the start of the room, both of those objects are going to exist. And that means that we're immediately going to win because there's going to be an enemy spawner. There's going to be an enemy character. So that is going to be true. And that is going to be true, which means we're going to win the game. So we don't even have to do anything, we win the game. What we need to do is reverse the values of these by putting an exclamation mark in front. Okay, this is saying if not object exists and not object exists enemy spawner. Okay, so it's kind of saying if they don't exist. And that, hopefully, we'll check the syntax, it's right, we're going to win the room. So when they're all dead, then we're going to win the game. I'm going to quickly add a test room, and I'm going to call it win underscore room, 640 by 520, and click the, I'll just quickly put in, how do I make, no. This is not the best way to do a win screen. I'm just, there we go. Okay, win. That's my win room. Okay, now I should be able to test this out. My game controller says if there's no enemy characters and no enemy spawners, go to the win room. All right, so let's run the game. Oops, I'll better make sure that I put some enemy in there. So I go back to spawner AI, remove those code comments there. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit trickier because I'm going to have a lot of enemies to fight. Okay, so that one's destroyed. And you'll see it's not spawning enemies anymore either because it was a new object that I didn't put any code on. Okay, alright, now that should have gone to the next room. Unfortunately, it didn't go to the next room, and I'll need to just go back and have a look and see why it didn't go to the next room. So let's take a quick look. Object HUD, we're executing that there. Game controller, if there's no enemy character and there's no enemy spawner, room go to win room. That should have worked. Okay, let's just do it in here anyway. We'll try it with the normal code. Let's see, there should be an option here to check if instance count, let's just do that, of enemy character is equal to 0. And then if instance count of enemy spawner is equal to 0, then we will just go to the next room. Then go to the next room. Okay, so I'll just delete that for now, and we'll see if it works this way. Because if it works this way, then well, we know that there was something wrong with my code. Okay, so there was something wrong with my code. I'll have to figure that out, and I'll type the correct code down the bottom. So that's actually probably it. Instead of the exclamation mark, not object exists and not, and that's gone yellow now, so that should work. I'll try that now. So let's delete this, delete. Execute enemy A, no, it was game controller. Okay, so I've just got the one left. Well, I'll figure out what the correct code is and pop that down the bottom. But you can see that we can get it working just with the drag and drop. There may be another way to do it. If I just go in here one more time and let's try it again. Let's see, instance count. Instance count. No, that only, oh, okay, I'm using object exists instead of instance exists. That's probably because the object does exist. It exists within the game code, but the instance is one instance of that object. So that's probably what I've done wrong. We'll give it one quick test. If not, I'll figure out the correct code and put it down the bottom. So instance exists, not object exists. Okay, that actually sort of worked, but I'm not sure why it went and reset the room instead of going to a new room. So for that, I would probably just change it and say room go to or room underscore next. Okay, so then, oops, next, and that's going to be room 1. That's going to be room 0, room 1. They go down in order like that. So that should be fine. I'm not going to test it. You can test it and see if you can figure out if there's something wrong with it, then try and figure out what the solution is, as you've seen me do here. So I'm just kind of making this up as I go along, thinking about what needs to be done. And this is essentially the process that you'll be doing. You're not going to know everything off the bat. You will need to use the help menu. You will need to ask for help. Now, asking for help is okay. Okay, asking someone else, posting on forums, looking up threads on Reddit and seeing how things are done, the Game Maker forums on there or the Yo-Yo Games forum, that's all perfectly fine, and you're not going to be marked down for doing that. What you will be marked down for during your assessment is constantly asking how to solve a problem without actually taking time to try and solve it yourself. So if you're asking a question and you say, hey, I think this is the right bit of code, but I'm not sure what's going on here, or what kind of code, what function should I be looking for to allow me to do this, then that's a valid question. But if you're saying, how do I do this, 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 without really doing any kind of research or testing yourself, then that's going to bring you down into that achieved, not achieved window, rather than the merit excellence, which I think is attainable for most people.